You talked about the community foundation of which you're a member. They've raised over $1 million in the county, and I think there's only been 2 major donations. The rest of it, the far bulk, is $3,000 donations.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought that up. That's exactly where I was just getting ready to go. You and I are both very involved in the the Meigs Foundation, previously the Meigs County Community Fund. Do you mind if we take a second and start from scratch from the very beginning?
Please.
Because you were involved before I was. I mean, all I know is that Jennifer Sheets is you might be the most important man in Meigs County, but Jennifer Sheets is probably the most important woman in Meigs County, and I don't think anybody's going to argue that.
Jennifer is relentless in her work and her support for the Community Foundation. And I can tell you the background is we tried to start this maybe 10 years ago, had a meeting, and we had the folks there who were really good folks, but they were mainly folks who would be benefiting from the foundation, not necessarily starting it and raising it. So we backed off a while, and the wonderful Kara Dingus Brooke of the Foundation for Appalachian Ohio came down again and sat down, and we talked about how do we get this started. And I have to say, I was a visionary on that one, not on everything, but on that one. But I said at that point in time, the person that you want is Jennifer Sheets. And it took about 6 months of talking to her to get her to agree with it. She had so many things going on in her life. She's so busy. But she decided that she would take it on. And since that time, she has been nonstop. And you think about that, in our little county, we've raised over $1 million. That's just an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah, we're at 1.3. Is that where we are?
Somewhere
now?
in that area. And I haven't talked to Jennifer this week, see how much she's raised this week. But
yeah, she's probably brought in another 150 since.
Probably so.
Yeah.
And those funds are for Meigs County. And what you find from donors, people love Meigs County. Meigs Countyans love Meigs County, and they want to help. And the idea of the fund to help the folks in Meigs County is very appealing, and it's just been a tremendous success.
So let's talk for a second just about because the community, the Meigs Foundation, it's an endowment, and the average person probably doesn't know what an endowment is. Do you mind if we go into that and just talk about, because people are like, well, 1.3 million, I've got a $500,000 project, I should talk to them, but that's not how it works.
Absolutely. It's that money goes into a fund that's managed by the Foundation for Appalachian Ohio. It earns somewhere between 6 and 7% a year. That endowment, those funds are here forever. And the funds that are given out to organizations every year are based simply on the interest that those endowed funds create. So that fund is going to be here well past our time. And every year as those funds grow, there'll be more and more money to give out to worthy projects. And the board that you're on has done just a wonderful job of going throughout the county for good projects, and it's heartening to see these people out there working to make Meigs County better and being able to help them with what they do.
Yeah. Do you think it would be okay if we spent some time talking about some of the projects that we funded? Cool. So, I mean, my favorite and probably most visible one is the farmers market. Now, did the community fund create the farmers market or solely make it possible? No, we helped. Right, that was all Stephanie and the other organizers literally willing it into existence, and they've done a wonderful job. That being said, we have had a hand in helping it along.
Helped with, I believe, 2 projects there, and trying to incentivize the great work of volunteers so that they're not alone out there trying to make this work. That's a wonderful project that brings people and services to Pomeroy. But the foundation has been all over the county, from health clinics at Eastern to bringing things to the Racine area. We just helped out in Rutland. It's just countywide good things. You know, kids getting health care at Eastern schools because of the foundation. That's just think about that, how wonderful that is that you can help with that.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And I mean, there's other things like we helped fund the sensory room at Eastern.
Absolutely.
I think there was something similar at Southern, but they just didn't call it that, correct?
And a trail at Meigs for kids.
Defibrillators for the Pomeroy Fire Department. Yeah,
think about that. The fund and those donations might save somebody's life that you know. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, when Paul, who's going to be on probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, when Paul first approached me about being on that board, I was like, oh, yeah, sure, because I was in the habit of saying yes to anything Paul asked. At first, I was very, very honored to be there, of course, but at the same time, I was just like, man, I am out of my league here. Like I am surrounded by titans. And I was just so honored, but also intimidated and a little confused as to why I was there. I'm very glad. It's one of the greatest honors of my life to be involved with that, though. And my contribution is negligible compared to Jennifer's and some of the others, but just sitting there and being able to help in a small way. I mean, so at one point, let's say it's at 1.3 million. If it earns 6 or 7% a year, what is the draw? Is it 4%, 5%?
Sometimes up to 7%, but somewhere around $40,000 to $45,000 a year for forever.
Forever. And then as it grows, let's say we get to 3 million, then that doubles. It's $100,000 a year.
Yep.
And is that going to turn us into Columbus?
No, but it's going to do really good for us here in Meigs County.
Yeah, and we don't want it to turn us into
Right.
Columbus either. It's amazing, and I think it has the possibility of getting much, much bigger over the course of my lifetime, and it's so cool to be able to be working on something that's going to outlive me, even though I'm only 33. I think it's remarkable. So,
And I think you're the first lifetime member of the foundation.
yeah, I guess we could announce that here. So about 3 years ago, sorry, the pandemic has me all screwed up on terms of timing,
Yeah.
but about 3 years ago, we came up with the Endow 200 campaign, right?
Correct.
That's 4 years ago, maybe. Anyway, the idea was within 5 years, we were going to get
$600,000.
$600,000, which would have been 200 people pledging $3,000 over the course of 5 years.
Your math is right.
Correct? Did I get it all right?
Yeah.
So it was a 5-year goal. By the end of 18 months, we were closing in on $1 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
then now we're at 1.3
And growing.
and growing. And as you mentioned, one of the cool things about that, just like I mentioned with the little park projects, giving people the opportunity to drive by and say, I did that, the majority of these donations were given through $50 a month, $100 a month. Maybe it's the end of the year and they're a small business. They just go ahead and write the $3,000 check, whatever. But it's not been the wealthy people or the big corporations that have done this.
And that was never the goal. This was to be a foundation of the people. And that's what it's turned into.
Do you think that aspect is perhaps just as impactful as the money itself?
I think so. And I think it not only, certainly the money, but just the idea that folks are legitimize that people love Meigs County, that they're not just willing to talk about it, but they will put their money, to help Meigs County. I mean, that says a lot.
Yeah. So sorry, getting back to what we were talking about, those were all like limited donations, meaning it's like, all right, I'm going to give $50 a month until I hit 3,000. Raina and I think we paid ours off early because obviously it hasn't been 5 years, and a lot of people have paid theirs off early. But I got to thinking, and I'm like, that $50 didn't hurt that bad. It's not saying it's a small amount of money. $50 is $50. That's going out to eat, or it's a week's worth of groceries for some people. But I was just like, I kind of miss that feeling of writing that check every month. So I got the idea that I kind of just want to do this forever. And I talked to Raina, and we're officially the first people in the Meigs Foundation. We are going to be giving $100 a month to the to the Meigs Foundation. Sorry, we just changed our name, by the way. I'll get that. We'll be giving $100 a month to the Meigs Foundation in perpetuity for life.
And we are hoping for both of you to have a good health and a long, long life.
Yeah, and I would love to see other people do the same thing. Maybe not $100. That's definitely a lot of money. But the idea behind it is just like, if you think about, even like, let's say you watch YouTube and you watch a person who cooks Indian food on YouTube, right? And they have a Patreon account where you fund them a couple dollars a month. It's just like, you're not getting necessarily anything in return, but what you are saying is, I value you enough, I value your contribution to my life enough that I'm willing to give you $5 a month to help make sure that you're still here tomorrow.
That's it.
And my generation does that. Like there are a lot of creatives, not just YouTubers, but also musicians and journalists that they make their living on Patreon. And they generally, once you sign up, as long as you're still receiving value, as long as the person doesn't literally go away, you kind of just make those. You just keep on making those payments. And I thought, how wonderful is it how wonderful of a thought is it to do the same thing for home?
Exactly.
How great is it that, you know, you see a press release, Meigs County Community Fund or Meigs Foundation funds this, and then you're like, oh yeah. So when you write the next check, it's that continual thing. It's not just I helped put those lights up. It's literally all of those.
It's just a commitment to home. And you know what else is amazing about that? When you make pledges and groups have pledges, there's always, some percentage where just the pledge never comes in or the folks quit doing it. In our foundation, it's 0% delinquency on that. Everybody that's made a pledge has paid it off or are making pledges. That just says a lot about this community.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't feel like I'm properly putting into words the amount of pride that I have for it, but I plan on being involved as long as you guys will have me. And I've gone through a little bit of a phase this year figuring out how to do all the things that I used to do while still being a dad. But I appreciate you guys keeping me through all of that.
Quite the life change, but you've done well. You're around everywhere.